keep asking whether you're strong enough to say yes to everything. That was never the right question. Every favor you agreed to at 9 at night, every plan you didn't want, dressed up as sure sounds great. Somewhere inside all that agreeing, a version of you quietly stopped showing up. You know the feeling. Opening your calendar and not recognizing one thing on it as something you chose. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly what that yes has cost you. And here's the question you've been too tired to ask. What would happen if you simply didn't? Think about the last time you said yes and felt your whole body sink before the word even finished leaving your mouth. That small drop in your chest. You felt it and said yes anyway. Think about the phone call you picked up already knowing what it would cost you, and you stayed on it for 40 minutes, agreeing to help with something you had no room left to give. Think about the meeting you didn't need to attend, the extra task you didn't need to take, the version of the plan where you simply said, "I can't this time," and how impossible those 4 words felt in your mouth. This isn't about being generous. You know the difference. Generosity fills you a little, even when it costs you. This is different. This is the yes that empties you and leaves nothing behind but a low hum of resentment you don't say out loud, not even to yourself. Here's the part nobody says clearly enough. You are not tired because you do too much. You are tired because so much of what you do was never actually chosen. It was agreed to. There's a difference, and your body has known it long before your mind caught up. The difference between a yes that comes from you and a yes that comes out of you. Reflexive, automatic, gone before you noticed it leaving. You're not weak for this. You're not bad at boundaries the way people say it, like it's a skill you skipped a class on. You learned somewhere back before you can even name it that a fast yes kept the peace, kept people close, kept you safe from being the person who said no and watched a face fall. So you kept saying it, and it kept costing you a little more than you had. It's tempting to think the fix is obvious. Just start saying no. Just get better at it. But that's not where this is going, because the truth about that yes is stranger and a little more forgiving than you've been told. Here's what actually happens in the half second before you say yes to something you don't want. There's a flicker. An impression arrives. Someone's asking you for something, and almost instantly, before thought even finishes forming, you agree. Epictetus had a word for that flicker, for the space right before your response. He called it assent. The moment an impression shows up and you decide, consciously or not, whether to let it govern you. Most of us never notice that moment exists. We think the yes is automatic, like breathing, something that happens to us rather than something we do. So we try to fix the exhaustion by getting more efficient, saying yes faster and better, cramming the unwanted plans in tighter, hoping if we just manage our time well enough, the sinking feeling will stop. It doesn't. It can't. Because efficiency was never the problem. The problem was that nobody ever showed you the flicker, let alone taught you that you were allowed to pause inside it. Think about a specific version of this. Someone you love asks you to help with something for the 3rd weekend in a row. You're tired in a way sleep doesn't fix anymore. And in that half second, an old, familiar thought arrives before you can catch it. If I say no, I'll disappoint them, and that feeling will be worse than whatever this costs me. So you say yes. You show up. You do the thing. And driving home afterward, something in you goes quiet in a way that isn't peace. It's absence, A small, specific grief for the version of the weekend you didn't get to have. And never even let yourself want out loud. It happens at work the same way, just dressed differently. Someone asks if you can take the extra piece of the project, just this once, and you hear yourself say, of course, before you've even checked what's left in you to give. Nobody made you say it. That's the part that stings. You did it to yourself. Quietly, the way you always do. And then spent the drive home wondering why you feel so hollowed out by a favor nobody forced on you. That's not a character flaw. That's a pattern common enough it has a name in nearly every language for exhaustion. You didn't invent people-pleasing, and you're not uniquely bad at this. You inherited it, the way most people do, from somewhere it once kept you safe. You are not failing at adulthood. You're carrying a habit that used to protect you and hasn't yet learned it doesn't have to work this hard anymore. And here's the part worth sitting with. Nothing about that pattern makes you weak. It made sense once. It may even be making sense right now, in whatever room you agreed to be in that you didn't want to be in. But there's a quieter truth underneath the pattern. One that has nothing to do with becoming someone who says no more often, and everything to do with something Epictetus insisted on 2,000 years ago. The outside event asking for your yes was never actually in your control. Whether they're disappointed, whether they understand, whether the friendship survives a single honest no, none of that is yours to manage. The only thing that was ever yours, in that half-second flicker, was the assent itself. Whether you gave it freely, or whether it was simply taken. That's the part that changes what happens next. Here's the thing Epictetus knew, sitting in a body that had been enslaved for years before it was ever free. He understood, better than almost anyone since, exactly where the line falls between what belongs to you and what never did. He wrote it as plainly as anything in philosophy has ever been written. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Other people's disappointment is not up to you. Their opinion of you, their comfort, the story they tell themselves about what your no means, none of that was ever yours to hold. What is up to you is smaller, and it is everything. Your judgment, your assent, the half-second where you decide what an impression gets to do with you. This is not a technique for getting better at boundaries. It's something closer to permission. Permission to notice the flicker before the yes arrives, and to actually stand inside it for one full breath before deciding anything. Try it like this. Not inside your control. How they'll react. Whether they'll be hurt. Whether they'll still like you afterward. Whether this makes you a good friend or a difficult one. Whether the group thinks less of you for once, just once, saying you can. None of that belongs to you, no matter how much it feels like yours to manage. Inside your control. Whether you pause before answering. Whether you tell the truth about what you actually have left to give. Whether the next yes you say comes from you and not just out of you, the way water leaves a cracked glass without anyone deciding it should. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, late at night, the way you might write to yourself now, in a tent on some cold border, ruling an empire he never wanted, and still finding time to remind himself of the one thing that was actually his. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Not power over whether people are disappointed. Power over the half-second, where you decide what their disappointment gets to cost you. Seneca said it differently and just as plainly. writing to a friend who kept postponing his own life for later. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it. Every reflexive yes is a small, quiet withdrawal from an account that never refills. Not because saying yes is wrong, because a yes that was never really yours, was never really spent on your life at all. It was spent on the fear of what might happen if you didn't give it. So, here is the answer to the question this opened with. What would happen if you simply didn't? If, just once, you let the silence after someone's request sit a beat longer than usual, if you said, "Let me think about it," and meant it. If you said no, plainly, without the apology stitched onto the front of it like a shield you needed permission to put down, nothing collapses. That's the secret nobody tells you because it's too quiet to make a good story. The friendship survives. The person adjusts, usually faster than you feared they would. The version of you that is being quietly disappearing every time you agreed to something you didn't want gets for one moment to stay in the room. Sit with that for a second, longer than feels natural at first. Not the no itself, just the quiet that comes after it. When nothing bad happened, and you're still standing there whole, in a life that is, for once, arranged around what you actually chose. Notice, too, how ordinary the room still looks. The same chair, the same light through the same window. Nothing marks the moment as important except the fact that, inside you, something has finally stopped bracing. You don't have to overhaul your whole life to feel this. You don't need a new personality or a script or the confidence to become someone else entirely by tomorrow morning. You only need the half-second, the flicker, the place, small as a breath, where the yes either comes from you or doesn't. Tonight, if something small asks for your yes, and you feel that familiar small drop in your chest before you've even answered, stop right there, just for a breath. Let the silence sit a moment longer than feels comfortable. Notice that nothing is demanding you fill it yet, and that the world does not end while you decide. That pause is not rudeness. It was never selfishness. It is the one part of this whole exchange that was always only yours, waiting quietly for you to notice it was there the entire time. The whole time you were so busy giving everything else away. Let it be yours again.